Dude.
What's up, everybody?
And welcome back to another episode of the Dustin and Tonya podcast.
2.0.
2.0, because this is season 2. I believe this is episode 6.
Yes.
And today we are going to talk about men's mental health.
Yes.
It is June 21st. It is Men's Mental Health Month. And I see a lot of posts and I see a lot of, support. And what I don't see a lot of is vulnerability and sharing experiences, things that you've necessarily gone through, or ways that you have found to kind of work through mental health as a man, as a couple, as a whatever. So I'm going to share a little bit about my stuff today. Tanya's going to kind of fill in on the partner side of things and share what she's experienced through some of my experience, and just show you that, like, today's episode's literally called "It's Okay to Not Be Okay." And it is, like, and that's almost the beginning of realizing that, like, it's okay. Like, the biggest thing that I want to put forward here is, like, you are special, you are an individual, you are one of a kind, but your problems are not unique. Like, you are not on an island, you are not by yourself, you are not, we all have crap. Like, literally, I've hung out with some rich, famous people that have garbage. I've hung out with homeless people underneath of a freaking bridge, because I used to build bridges for the railroad. And, like, at the end of the day, every person that I've ever met has their problems, has their issues, has their things that they work through and go through. And so it's not, it's not a race thing, it's not a financial thing, it's not a man thing, it's not a female thing. It's like, we're all dealing with shit. And how I got the idea to record this episode was, I was listening to a podcast, and the dude had a bunch of concussions, and he said, I literally was showing up to work and people were like, oh, what's his name's gonna work today? And, like, then he wouldn't do anything, and people, like, ultimately were talking shit and, like, picking on him because he wasn't working. And he was like, that's what sucks about mental health, is nobody knows what's happening. Nobody knows what's actually going on, because you're not walking with a cane, because you're not in a wheelchair, or you don't have a cast, or your eye ain't black and blue, or whatever. Like, your injury is internal, and nobody knows the battle that you are fighting. And so he said, like, he was at a point in his life where he was literally just trying to not pass out on the crapper. And it's like, that's mental health. That's when you are struggling to be yourself, when you are struggling to be alive, when there's questions that you have and there's not answers that you are getting, and you feel alone and you feel dark and you feel. I've been in a room full of people and been more by myself than I've ever been in my life. And that's the truth. I got chills just talking about it, and I'll get to that situation. But I've literally been in a room full of my best friends, rolling with the people that love me and all of that, and I've never felt more alone in my life. I was actually wondering why my wife was even with me. Like, that's mental health. It was in my head. It wasn't in her head. It wasn't in their head. They were having a good time. They were experiencing something else. But my experience was an internal battle that was very dark and very serious and very to myself. And so today I really just want to talk about some of my mental health problems. And I'm more than vulnerable and willing to share with you and kind of open myself up to all this, because I also believe that it helps me heal. And maybe it'll give somebody a voice or an opportunity to realize that, like, you are not alone in any of this. And there's someone there for you. There, like, my wife was there for me. I didn't even know how to tell her what I was experiencing. I didn't even know how to tell myself what I was experiencing. And so, yeah, like, I think I'm just going to dive right in. Again, like, I want to call this one, "It's Okay to Not Be Okay." And I truly believe, like, it's like AA or NA or whatever. Like, the second you can admit that, like, I'm not okay, it's the beginning of becoming okay. And so I think some of that is literally saying, like, I'm not okay right now, but that's okay.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it's hard to do that because we don't, like, we have this fear of, like, what are other people going to think? What are people going to say? There's this, like, fear of judgment that goes on inside. And really, like Dustin's saying, I think the biggest thing in this, if you get anything out of it, is that like we all go through our own struggles, because life is hard. Like there's no manual to life that says, here, do this and everything's going to be okay. Like we are all trying to figure it out on our own. Yeah, we have people that we kind of follow and we look to, but we're all on our own journey. And sometimes like things can just be really hard and a struggle, and to not understand like, why is things not working for me? Why am I experiencing this? But to be able to come to a place where you can speak out about it and say, you know what, like I'm not okay. And I need, like, I'm going to be okay, but right now I'm not okay. And like seeking and sharing to have people who can help support you and love you and get you whatever it is that you need to get through whatever it is that you're facing.
Yeah, like the biggest thing is you are not alone. So
No.
I'm just gonna dive into this. Around 2000, probably 11, me and Tonya were married. She was going through the endometriosis battles, which I'm sure you know about. If not, like hit me up and we can go through all that. And that's just not what today is about. So around then, like I was gray. And gray is like a really good word for me, because like it wasn't white, which is like happy and oh, everything is good. And it wasn't black, which is like, I don't know my head from my ass. I don't know what's happening to me and I don't know what's going on. And trust me, I've lived through both. And so when I say that, like, I mean, when I was gray, I was like there. I was just there. And I remember like in the midst of this is when I was going through prescription pain pill stuff. I was doing way more drugs than what anybody should. But it was my way of coping, not only with her situation, but my own situation. And I remember telling her, she asked me one time, like, why do you always have the need to take more pills? And my answer was, because it makes me feel normal. Yeah. Now, normal, like 6,000 milligrams of prescription pain pills is what I got to before I went to treatment. I was taking 6,000 milligrams between Oxycontin and gabapentin. And I'm not sharing that to brag. I'm sharing that to tell you that 6,000 milligrams of prescription pain pills was helping me feel normal. Now, when I checked into treatment, they told me most people that take drugs like that are dead, that there's not very many of me left. So you can imagine that like my normal was probably not very normal, but that's what normal felt to me. The drugs made me feel what I considered to be normal because I felt so cruddy without them. And so I actually went to the doctor and I got prescription depression pill, SSRIs or whatever. Yeah. I was on some form of Zoloft or the Equate version or whatever that was. So I was on a freaking prescription for depression, and it did me okay. Like every time I went to the doctor, I went like every 3 months or something like that, and he would say like, how are you doing? And I'm like, well, I think okay, but I don't even know how to answer that because this is just how I feel. Right? It wasn't like, oh man, I'm a freaking ray of sunshine and I can't wait to get up today. Right. But I also wasn't like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. Right. And so it was what I would consider to be helping. In the midst of this, obviously, I'm taking a grip of prescription pills. We're drinking, we're partying, we're doing all these things that all don't help with depression, to be honest with you. It may feel like it does, but they're not helping. So I check into treatment. I have to bring my Zoloft with me. They give it to me every day. And when I talked to the psychiatrist, he said, I actually think you have chemical depression. And chemical depression for me meant because I felt crappy and because we were going through what we were going through with the disease and all the problems, we were motorcycles and all the stuff, I found prescription pain pills to make me feel better. Those prescription pain pills were making my mind or my depression worse. But in my mind, they were helping me. So it was a vicious cycle. And so he called it like a chemical depression when I checked in. And he said, you're likely gonna be able to get off of these once you stop doing drugs. Like, come on, man. How does that even work, right? So I wasn't feeling well. So I was doing drugs, and then they gave me a drug to help me feel well, and now they wanted me to stop doing drugs, and then I would stop doing the other drugs, and then I would feel well. That's how mental health works. Like, and that's exactly been my experience. Is I'm going through this crap. I feel like shit. I'm taking drugs, and I feel like shit. So they give me other drugs, and I feel like shit.
Right.
But they tell me if I get off of all of them, then I'll feel better. And I'm like, but originally I felt like shit, and that's how crazy it was. And so he was right. Literally about 6 months after treatment, I had went through outpatient when I got home and blah blah blah. And when I came back, like I was better. Like 34 days of not doing drugs for me, I lost like 15 pounds in treatment, literally from just not doing drugs. I lost 15 pounds in treatment. You know, I remember the first day I came home, I was smoking a cigarette out on our porch, if that can like tell you where I was. And Tonya said, "What are you thinking right now?" And I said, "We don't have any leaves in our yard." Now, this was November, and we lived in Nebraska, and our yard should have been full of leaves. Something that I don't ever pay attention to. Number one, I hate yard work. That is depression to me. But I noticed, I was starting to notice the world around me. I was opening up to that there was life, and it was colorful, and there was no leaves, and the grass was turning brown, and the wind was blowing. Like, those were all things that had died to me over the last few years. It died inside of me. You know, I remember my mother, when I got home from treatment, saying, "It was like you didn't even care about us anymore," my parents. And I told her, like, "Listen, I didn't give a fuck about you because I didn't give a fuck about me. So I didn't have the capacity to give a fuck about anything other than I need more drugs to feel better because I feel like shit. So I need more drugs." And
It's
that
like a survival mode.
yeah, and that's exactly what I was in, was survival mode. And so that's what my first bout of like nasty ass depression was like. And it was nasty. After coming off prescription pills, I felt way better. The world had came back alive. It was like, you know, I could, you know, whatever. Like, I felt so much better because I wasn't high anymore. So I weaned myself off of prescription depression pills. And I've never went back onto them.
No.
And I've never felt the need to.
Yeah.
But I have been through bouts of depression since then.
Mm-hmm.
I've just not felt the need to have prescription medication. I know prescription pills, pain pills, like mess me up as far as prescriptions go. And so I'm at the point, like, if I'm not dying or willing to die, I don't want any prescriptions just because of the way they make me feel.
Right.
And so that's where I've gotten to in my journey. I'm not saying it's the right way, because it gets dark moving down this story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think for me, like, you know, in the beginning, as like, obviously I was dealing with my own kind of stuff, and Dustin was going through his stuff too. And, you know, kind of like to piggyback off of last week's podcast, if you haven't listened to it yet, we talked about the 5 stages of the couple's journey. And, you know, we talk about how, like, the importance of communication. And in this time in our life, like, our communication wasn't that great. Like, we were both in survival mode. But I think, like, the important thing that I want to point out is that it came to a point where, like, I had to step in and say, "I know that you are not well. Like, it's time for you to get help." And so for me, it was kind of hard, because it was hard to see, like, what you were going through and what you were experiencing when I was going through my own kind of stuff. And so you kind of don't recognize those signs. And for me, it was like I was just going along with, because, like, man, I was shitty inside too. But, like, to notice the signs of that you were changing.
Yeah.
Like, there was a time when it was like, wow, I can tell that you are high right now.
Yeah.
And should have had concern.
Yeah.
But I didn't, because it was like, man, like, whatever he needs to do, like, we're going through our own kind of thing. But that time that you laid on the floor, I think you were on our spare bed, and you said, "I'm either going to rob the pharmacy or I need to get help." And for me to have that, like, wow, it was like that click factor of, like, he is not okay. Like, there's something wrong. And, like, there were so many signs, like, you know, obviously I can look back now.
Yeah, hindsight's
and
20/20.
see these red flags, you know. But it's like, man, he is, like, screaming for help right now. and I need to be the one to intervene and say it is time.
Yeah.
Like there, you don't have an option here but to go get help.
Right.
And so like as the spouse or partner, like for me, like knowing when to step in and say, okay, it's time. Like you need to go get help. We need to figure out whatever we need to do.
Yeah.
Because I can see like you are not okay.
Yeah.
You are
And
not
I wasn't
okay.
like, you know, the 2 days before I went to treatment, I literally, that was what I told her. I said, I'm either going to rob the fucking pharmacy or I need to go get help. And she like, it was almost like, well, then it's time for you to go get help. And it was like, yeah, what? Yeah, go get help.
Yeah, and I think too, you know, sometimes it's that like, man, I don't want to say anything, you know, because what if it's like, what if I'm wrong, or if I'm going to cause contention by saying, but like, I think, you know, if you are a spouse of somebody and you recognize these signs, like you have to intervene, because in this time frame, like you're not in your right state of mind.
Yeah.
And, you know, like as a couple, being able to step in and say, I don't care what you think.
Yeah.
You are not okay.
Yeah.
We need to do something. And so just recognizing that, you know, and it's hard. It's really hard. But like to intervene and drawing that line in the sand and saying, no, I'm going to step in and intervene no matter what they think of this moment. Like however they react or respond. Like, I love you, and I need to do whatever I can to get you the help that you need. So I have to intervene when I know that you're not in the right mindset to do it for yourself.
Yeah, it's good. So I get out of treatment. I'm feeling better. And a lot of that is the next point that I want to talk about, which is where my health and fitness journey started. And I played sports my whole life. I exercised my whole life, whatever. But there was a 10-year span where I didn't do any of that. I was doing drugs and drinking and being wild, and exercise and eating healthy was not a thing. And so when I got out of treatment, that was like my number one focus, was like get my mind right by going to AA and, you know, speaking to the people that I had heard along the way, and getting away from some of the people that I needed to get away from. And like, I needed to make some adjustments in my life. And one of them was my physical well-being, my physical health. I was 260 pounds when I checked into treatment. I was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day, drinking a 12-pack of Diet Mountain Dew a day, on prescription freaking depression pills. Like, I was the epitome of unhealthy. Today I'm 202 pounds, 6-pack, feel great, doing the thing. Like, my life has changed because I changed my life. And so it started with, you know, doing Tony Horton videos in the garage together. And then from there, it was like 2013, I stopped smoking and I started chewing tobacco. And it was like, you can easily say like, oh, that isn't any better, but it was. And I got to 2 or 3 cans of chew a day. Like, I was a nicotine fiend. But I went from 12 Diet Mountain Dews to 10 to 8 to 6 to 4 to 2 a day to 1 a day to 1 every other day to finally, like, I might have a Diet Coke or a Diet Mountain Dew like 3 times a year now. And usually we drink, like, I drink a third of it, she drinks a third of it, and the other third we're like, okay, like I'm good here, right? And so it was the removal of cheesy casseroles and hamburger helpers.
Yeah.
And into, like, we'll make our own hamburger helper, but without all the stuff in it. Like, this wasn't this super fast ordeal. But what I found was that eating healthier, smoking less cigarettes or switching to chewing tobacco, less coffee or Mountain Dew or caffeine, and more physical exercise made me feel better. And when you start to feel better and you start to look a little better, you become a little bit more confident. You become a little more, you know, proud of yourself. And it's something that you can build upon, like, and it starts to feel good. And it's now that, like, new drug, right? Because at the end of the day, like, we're all addicted to something, in my opinion. It's either work or sex or whatever that is. But, like, mine started to be taking care of my health and taking care of my relationship and taking care of my mind. And so along the way, that health showed me that, like, Listen, I have a darkness that rises up inside of me. I don't know where it comes from. I don't know who gave it to me. I don't know the family heritage or whatever it is, but I have an anger and a darkness that I taste blood in my mouth, my eyes turn black, and the world goes silent. Like fucking full-fledged blackout psycho angry. And it's dark and it comes up out of nowhere sometimes. And I have found that the more that I work out, the more that I take care of my health, the more that I remove things that no longer serve me, the more that I focus on things like nature and hot tubs and doing hard things, so that when hard things come, I don't get blindsided by them, and then my immediate reaction is that anger, which is a fear thing or whatever that is. Like so focusing on the things today that make me feel better no matter how I feel. Right? So going to the gym now, eating healthy, exercising in nature, things like that have helped me realize that, like, that removes some of that darkness. I'm not saying that shit doesn't rear up. I'm not saying there's days I don't lose the battle, but like 6 days out of 7 or 9 days out of 10 or 19 days out of 20, like, I'm in pretty good shape mentally, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, because of the routines, because of the things I've not only removed, but because of the things I've added to my life, and really focusing on my physical health and my mental health has changed me drastically. And man, I don't remember the last time that I actually like let somebody know who I was and how things were going to be in a very, very nasty, dark, and scary place. And so that's like, that was the second part for me, was beginning to take care of my health, beginning to realize that, like, I think some of it is like you burn some of that energy off.
Well, I think that, like exercise, for one, it releases your natural dopamine, which is the feel good hormone, right? And so when we can utilize exercise, it's a way to release the feelings that we feel. It's a way to decompress from our day, the things that bring us stress, the things that bring us worry and concern. It gives us that space to release it instead of holding onto it. And I believe, like, we can create our own depression.
Yeah, 100%.
We can create our own illness, and it's because we hold on to things. And when you have a natural ability to release and let those things go, which we have found in exercise, like, if you've ever had a bad day and you go and sling some weights around, like, you feel pretty darn good when you are done, because you just like go all out and release that pent up anger or aggression or whatever it is that you're feeling. And so, like Dustin said, like, finding, and it was for both of us, that taking care of our health, and especially exercise, like, that is a natural way. And eating well, for sure.
Those two are definitely hand in hand.
But it is a natural way for you to heal yourself from the inside out and release the things that can cause that depression, that can cause those emotions that we tend to hold on to, that builds up over time.
Yeah. So with that, like, along that journey, it's 2013, 14, 15, 16, we're working out, we're eating better, we're minimizing some of the things that were bothering us and hurting us. And along that journey, I have found other healing properties that have helped me. And I'm going to share some things that people don't necessarily know, but along that journey, I found nature to be helpful for me. So we've been on, 50-mile hikes in the desert, and we've done, skydiving. We've done all kinds of trips and travel helps me stay sane, because it's new people and it's new places and it's new opportunities, and you're always living on that razor's edge that's like new and fun and adventure and stuff like that. And it doesn't allow me to get stuck in some of the, like, boring,
Monotonous.
monotonous stuff. And so, you know, anytime I have the ability to get out in nature, even if it's to go fishing, I remember 2017, me and you were fishing fools.
We were.
Like, we caught more freaking fish that year.
Yeah, we did.
But like, what it really was it was peaceful. It was fishing by yourself and having the time to just be, right? Because we're not good at just being. And so that was kind of the beginning of me realizing that, like, it's okay to not be okay, but I can also just be. Sitting on this bucket in the sun, waiting for this bass to string my line, and then I can catch more fish than you.
Not
Yeah,
possible.
and so that was obviously healing for me.
Yeah, for sure it was.
But along that journey, so I found nature and travel has helped me a ton.
Yeah.
I'm gonna talk now a little bit about plant medicine, and plant medicine has been a part of my life since I was 12 years old. I just didn't use it as plant medicine my whole life.
Yeah.
So the first time I got high, I smoked marijuana, was when I was 12 years old, detasseling corn in Nebraska. And that was when I was seeking to get high. I was seeking to, you know, feel better or whatever. And in my journey since, like, plant medicine has turned into ayahuasca journeys. It's turned into psilocybin mushrooms. It's turned into cannabis use in several different forms, in several different ways, and several different times. It's been the medicine that has gotten me through the times that I was in. Now, I do go through periods of sobriety. I go through periods of using cannabis to get me through a series of events, or to get me through a season that I'm really, really struggling with. And so I'll be the first one to admit, like, I have used plant medicine to help me get through things. And then I also am fully aware when it's time to move on from that, right? And so there's been seasons where it's like, man, I'm using a lot of cannabis, and we'll have conversations, and it's like, hey, this is really helping me right now. And she will be like, I know, but you're like on that razor's edge.
It's a fine line of, like, man, I don't care for it, but I understand what it's doing at this point, because where he's at, and that's just come with our time together of being able to read each other and need to know, like, this isn't all that fun for me right now, but I can see where he is at, and if it's helping him through this season, like, we'll have these conversations, we'll talk about it, so, like, we know where each other's at, but it's just for a season of time, and then he'll come to me and be like, I'm good.
I think today's
the day. That's it. And
yeah. And I'm not, I don't tell anybody to prescribe to that. I don't tell you. I'm telling you
for you
what has worked for me up until this point. Again, I've done 4 ayahuasca journeys that we're actually going to do probably an entire podcast about plant medicine. And so I'm not going to touch on it super heavy today, but it has been a benefit in my life as much as it has been problemsome. And that's why I mean, like, it's a razor's edge, and you have to be aware of where you are, who you are, and can you pull the cord when the cord needs pulled? Because if you can't, then it's not a good thing for you. And plant medicine, cannabis, ayahuasca, they can both be very demanding of you, like always calling you back, always wanting more from you. And that's what I mean. Like, you got to be able to pull the cord. You got to be able to say no. You got to be able to say, I'm out of that season, or I want out of that season. So today's the day that I'm done with that. And it can be a really, really strong battle. So use with caution if you decide to do something like that. One thing I've really, really focused on this year is meditation. And that is that we've done meditation in the nature. I do meditate every morning. I take 10, 15 minutes to myself to just be quiet. So this is my version of all this. The first thing I do is pray by being grateful and saying, thank you for another day. Thank you for my beautiful wife. Thank you for another opportunity. Thank you. I'm grateful. And then meditation for me starts with usually an ask, like, how can I use the gifts that you have given me to better serve our family financially, emotionally, with joy, with pleasure, whatever, and the community and the greater good, the greater cause. How can I do that? And then meditation to me is time to be quiet. So prayer is like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Meditation is like, I'm looking for seeking you, seeking answers, and then be quiet and allow whatever happens. A lot of people like follow your breath, whatever. This is how I do it. I literally, on the up breath or on the in breath, I say, it can be easy. And on the out breath, I say, and so it is. In my mind, this isn't something I do out loud. My eyes are closed, my mouth's closed. I'm breathing through my nose, into my belly, blah, blah, blah. But like, it can be easy. Breathe that in. And so it is, breathe that out. It's like you're literally telling your system, like, today can be easy. Whatever challenges you face, whatever things you're going through, like, it can be, it doesn't have to be hard. It doesn't have to be a challenge. It doesn't have to be a struggle. It can be easy. So it can be easy, and so it is. And I'll do that. And then I usually know, like, I don't need to do this chatter anymore because my mind's calm. Now just listen. And so all of that is a silent thing, but meditation has really helped me focus on the internal voice inside of my head, overcoming the enemy within. I have a darkness that rises up, and it's like I'm always on that line of like, I can go left or I can go right, but I'm really focusing on going right.
And I think too, the meditation, it allows you to have the time to sit with yourself.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we can get so caught up in go all the time that we don't allow ourselves the time to just sit and be. And meditation, I found, is the best time to do that. So even though you're seeking, right, but you're allowing yourself to be still, to have those thoughts that come up and like, why am I having these thoughts? Where is this coming from? Why am I experiencing this? Why do I have these emotions? What is that? Like, it allows you to answer things within yourself. So you get to kind of like just be with yourself and figure it out instead of just like pushing it down and pushing it down and pushing it down even more.
Yeah, I have friends that are literally like on the clock every 15 minutes. Their day is prescribed. Everything is listen to a book, listen to a podcast. I don't got time for TV or movies or nothing. Like, it's just go. And they're usually the ones that I see need to meditate. And it's like, well, I don't have 20 minutes to meditate. And there's always that joke. It's like, I don't have 20 minutes to meditate. And the answer is good, then take 40 minutes. And it's like, no, you misunderstood me. And it's like, no, you misunderstood me.
Yeah.
You have to take these times. You have to make these times, because these are the things that keep me off of depression medication. These are the things that keep me from telling that psycho ass lady that was driving the other day what I felt. These are the things that help me be calm, have peace. And if there's anything that costs you your peace, it is way too expensive. And so if that's, I need to take 20 minutes, me and her have had this conversation a bunch of times. I believe people that go to a job 9 to 5, when you get off at 5, like, I always used to have a drive, so that was like my meditation time. And I don't mean like close my eyes while I'm driving, but that was like decompression. That was like me time. I could do my own thing, smoke cigarettes or whatever that was. Like, it was my time, right? And I believe if as a society we would take 15 or 20 minutes when you got home to like go to the closet and sit on the floor and cry or bitch at the wall or fucking scream in a pillow or beat a pillow with a plastic bat or whatever that is, to like get that shit out of you, to get the day off of you, so that when you go to serve your family, when you go to talk to your kids or your wife or your dog or whatever, it's not that I just brought all this shit home and now I'm going to give it all to you too. So I believe like a great time for meditation, 10, 15 minutes, is in that transition from work to home. And a lot of people say do it in the morning, and that's when I like to do it. But I also take time throughout the day, 10, 15 minutes, to like readjust and reset. And so I think, in those times when we have those breaks, like if we can just take 10 minutes and be, just be, get everything off of you, get everything out of you, That way, when you come back into the room, you can give whoever's there, even if it's by yourself, your best self. And it's not, you didn't carry a bunch of crap home from your boss or your coworkers or whatever.
Yeah, we all have 10 minutes.
Yeah.
We all have 10 minutes.
Yeah, if you don't have 10 minutes, make 20.
Make 20.
So I'm going to share something that is really dark. And this is in the midst of me doing all of these things, taking care of my health, doing plant medicine, focusing on exercise and eating well. Matter of fact, I've never been in a place that I was eating better or exercising more than in the midst of this next series or season of my life. It was towards the end of 2020 and beginning into 2021. I actually had a suicidal situation, and what I mean by that is, like, you're not going to believe this, but I had the job that most people wouldn't want. I worked at one of the coolest places in the country, according to the majority of people. I had, great friends. We were making good money. We were literally preparing for our first bodybuilding show. We had very little stress, very little, problems in our lives. And I was the darkest and gnarliest I had ever been inside. And she actually was kind of like turned off to that because I was internalizing all of it. And she knew I was like struggling, but not like fucking struggling. And so I was struggling really, really bad. And on December 19th, 2020, our morning started. My birthday is December 21st, which was going to end up being a Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, I think like a Monday.
And so on Saturday, which was December 19th, we woke up, but we were going to work because we were getting a bunch of orders out for Black Friday, Cyber Monday, Christmas, whatever. So we had to work that Saturday morning. And we got up at like 4 a.m. because we were doing bodybuilding prep. I'm sure we were in the middle of 75 hard or something. Like, I needed all these things, right? And I honestly can't tell you what had been happening to me other than, like, I was getting very dark inside. And I didn't, like I said, if you looked on the outside of my life, I had everything. I had a car, I had a wife, I had a dog, I had money, I had the job, I had the friends, I had it all. And I was fucking miserable. I hated myself, I hated everything about myself, and it was a very, very hard time. So we wake up, she tells me, or we go work out, we come back, and I was so, like, beat down that I just knew that she had started a birthday party for me, and I wasn't in the fucking mood for it. Like, I didn't have the energy to smile in front of a bunch of people, even though they were my best friends. And so I literally 6 a.m. I'm like, yo, like, you didn't do what I think you did you? And she's like, what? And I was like, have a party. And she was like, no, why would I do that? And I was like, the way that she cocked back, I knew that we were in for it. And so I was like, are you sure? This goes on for a couple minutes, and finally she's like, God damn it, you always ruin all of my surprises and blah, blah, blah. And little did she know, like, that was the last thing that I needed, because I literally didn't have the energy to even have this argument. And so it wasn't her fault. Like, that's not what I'm getting at. But I was just so beat down inside that I didn't want to hang out with my friends, and she wanted me to have a cool birthday party. So she had lined up this secret party, like 20 or 30 people were showing up. They were making food, and we were all at my buddy's house. Like, it was going to be awesome in her eyes. And to me, it was exhausting. And so she loses it. We have this big ass blowout. Well, we still had to get ready for work. So she's in showering. And like I said, we're in the middle of bodybuilding prep. And then you eat steak, chicken, turkey, rice, and green beans. And that's it. And so we had some chicken made up, and we had some steak made up. And I was like, you know what? I literally just shit in my wife's Cheerios about the birthday party. So I'm going to make today better. And I'm going to do the right thing as a man. And I'm going to give her the steak. And so I'll take the chicken or the turkey or whatever the fuck it was. And so it comes lunchtime, and she's smiling now, like, because it's funny. But at the time it wasn't. So I give her the steak, I have the chicken or the turkey or whatever. I literally show up to work, Me and the guy that owns the joint get into an argument. Why aren't all these orders out? Blah blah blah. And it was like all this shit was piling up on me, piling up on me, piling up on me. And so it gets to lunchtime. I literally go over, warm my food up. I'm sitting at the desk by myself, and she comes over. And she always did at lunchtime. And she
Yep.
sat down.
And you asked me how my lunch was.
Yeah, I said, how was your lunch? And she had just taken the first bite out of steak. And she literally looks at me and said, this steak is chewy. And that was the fucking straw that broke the camel's back. I fucking lost it. I literally stood up and walked out of work. Thankfully, the bus that we had lived in was in the parking lot. So I go out to that bus and I'm distraught. I am fucking wrecked. I don't know how else to explain it, but like I'm trashed. I don't have another ounce of energy. Everything that I'm trying to get these orders out. I'm trying to do the right thing for my wife. I'm trying to take care of my health. I'm trying to do plant medicine and heal my fucking body and my thoughts and my mind. And why am I so broken? And I am fucking bawling out in the bus. And I'm just bawling and bawling and bawling. And finally, like, I came to the conclusion that that was the end of my time, that I was going to commit suicide. And I'm sitting in this bus, bawling my eyes out. And I'll never forget, like, all that came through my mind is like, would they even hear it? Because they're 100 yards from me in the building. And all I could think about was like, they probably wouldn't even hear it. Like, that's how low of a place that I was internally, that I was literally concerned, like, would they even hear? I wasn't concerned that I wouldn't be there anymore. It was just like, I wonder if they'll even hear it. And so about the time I go to get the handgun that's in the bus, I had a feeling, I had a voice, I had a speak into me. And it was like, what you feel right now, the pain and the discomfort and the darkness, doesn't go away with suicide. You actually carry that into eternity with your spirit, with your soul. And so if you go forward with what you do, it doesn't end today. You will actually carry that with you. And all I could hear was the saying lot, forever, forever. And I was like, oh man, so what am I supposed to do? Like, that was what's going through my mind. So I'm hearing like, if I do this, I think that it's the end, but actually it was just the beginning of eternity and experiencing that darkness forever with no possibility of making it better. And so as I'm asking myself, like, well, then what am I supposed to do? It was like it was spoken over me that I'm supposed to get up every day and do whatever I can to feel 1 ounce better than I did right then and there. Because if I feel 1 ounce better and I continue on with my life, then I will feel better than I did right then and there. But it was my responsibility to get up and to do whatever it took to feel better than I did right then and there. It was my job to begin to heal. It was my job to begin to see life differently. It was my job to figure out that suicide wasn't the answer, that it wasn't the end. It was merely a different beginning of more misery. And so as I'm fucking bawling and figuring all this shit out, wondering if they would even hear it, I'm realizing that like I don't want to feel like this another second. So there's no way I can go through with this because I can't stand any of this right now. What's going on?
I'm just emotional.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah, it was hard, and it is hard, and it like
and I think like the hard part, like, it's like I had no idea.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And not like I'm trying to sound me, but like I had no idea the darkness that you felt.
Yeah.
And I had no clue what you were feeling inside. Like, I knew you were uncomfortable, and I just like thought like, oh, it's because the bodybuilding show, like, it's different, right? Like, you were putting on weight.
Yeah.
And you were eating so much. I remember like you were like, oh, I'm so full all the time. It would take you like an hour to eat.
Yeah.
But I had no idea of what you had felt And it's hard. Like, I know we've talked about it, but it's just hard to hear it.
Sure. Yeah. And usually I cry when I share this. So
Yeah.
it's healing for me. And so that was the day that like I died to myself. I believe that a part of me died that day.
Yeah.
And that part of me was the part that like you don't get to give up. You don't get to quit. Like all you're doing is taking that with you. And so my duty from then on was to like wake up and feel an ounce better than I did that day, which as you can tell, like doesn't take a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But back then it took everything that I had.
Yeah.
Right. And there's been days since that it's taken everything that I had. So when we talk about mental health, it's not like that one time or that one place over there or that one situation. No, like I have experienced darkness and mental health problems most of my life. In these darknesses and in these seasons and in these times, like I've had to fight through and find ways outside of what I'm sharing with you, because I'm telling you, like I was the healthiest I had ever been. I was the fittest I had ever been. I was the strongest. Life was good, but internally my life was bad. And I literally am standing at a birthday party and none of them know the situation I experienced that day.
Not even me.
But that night I'm telling them like, you don't understand that you being here for me helps me more than you'll ever know. Like you guys loving me and caring for me is carrying me through a time that I can't carry myself. And they were like, oh yeah, we love you, man. You know what I mean? And it was like, no, you don't understand. And which it wasn't anybody's idea to understand. But I was standing in a room of 20, 25, 30 people who loved me and wanted to be there for me and was celebrating me, that didn't realize that 6 hours, 8 hours earlier, I didn't even want to fucking be me anymore. Right? And so like that's been my experience with that. So off of that was 3 years ago. Like I've had bouts since then. I've had situations since, I've had seasons since then. And I've used all of these modalities. I've tried different things, and even like since God and prayer and, being baptized and all these things, like I'm not gonna stand here and lie to you that my life changed and everything was taken away. No, like I have battled bouts of depression. There are days that I wake up to go to the gym, hit the hot tub, hit the sauna, take a cold shower, and I go back to bed because I don't have enough energy to face the day. And that's the truth. And that's been in the bus, that's been in this apartment, that's been in every phase of my life. There are days that I don't have the energy physically or mentally, emotionally, spiritually to face the day. Now, one thing that I try not to allow is to have 2 of those days in a row, because then it becomes a problem for me. And then I start looking for other answers, and other answers aren't a good thing for me.
I think that one thing that has helped too is you started to open up and share with me.
Right.
So you didn't hold it to yourself.
Yeah.
Because like in that time, 3 years ago, you didn't talk to anybody about it.
Yeah.
You kept it inside, and that's what I was saying in the beginning, is that's what we do. Like I've had my own struggles too, so I know what he's talking about. But you don't want somebody to know what you're feeling, and so you feel so alone and like you're on this island, and that you can't share it with anybody, and that's where it gets really, really dark. And I think, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that since then, because you didn't even share that with me until like a couple months later.
Yeah.
Like I had no idea until he finally came out and told me, and it was like, holy crap, like I had no clue. And I think from that point forward, you started to share your darkness with me.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a lot. Sometimes it's a lot to take in. But I know that if I can be that for him, if I can be that barrier, that absorbing, whatever you want to call it, to allow him to get out what he is feeling, then I know that that's helping him be okay.
Yeah.
And it's gotten like so much better, because like now, like it'll be like 2-3 hours in the morning and then like, okay, done,
Yeah.
moving on.
Yeah,
Let's
and
go.
I've done that like ever since, since then, like I've literally woke up in the depths of hell and ran with it until like 10 a.m. and meditated and worked out and exercised and did all the things. And then just like, okay, fuck this, I'm done with that. And just decided that like we're not going to talk about this right now, we're not going to focus on this, we're going to focus on what we need to do. And it's helped me like not carry it on, not drag it out, because I can get into a whole ass thing. And she knows now like what I'm experiencing, what I'm going through, and is more aware to when I'm having one of those situations.
Yeah, and I think too, like we've had this conversation before too, it's hard because like he will come to me and share like what he has going on and what he's experiencing, and like needing answers, but like I don't have answers and he knows that, but it's like it can just it can be a lot.
I'll have an aggression, like a pent up aggression that I need to like let out, and I need an answer, or I need someone to say like it's okay to not be okay, or whatever. And it's like she doesn't know what to say, and so it's caused contention with us. But then we've also like grown in that, knowing that like we now know like I'm not coming to you for answers. I need to get this out. And I know that you don't have the answer, so don't feel bad that you don't have the answer. I just need to let all this shit go, otherwise it's only going to get worse. And so it has been a journey. And me sharing my vulnerability, sharing with her, and that like sharing with the world, sharing my story, writing my book, all of those things have been helpful for me because they allow me to heal some of those pieces. They allow me to realize that I'm not the only person who thinks they're broken. I'm not the only person that struggles with shit. I'm not the only person that has had hard times or darkness or whatever. And so vulnerability and sharing has helped me a ton.
Yeah.
And now like the last point that I have is knowing what you need to do. And that is, like I said, like I need to put an end to this. I need to stop this today, or I need to whole ass feel this today. But tomorrow morning, it doesn't matter how I feel. I need to get out of bed. I need to move forward. I will not allow myself to have 2 days in a row.
I think too, like if you want to share it, like you're journaling.
Yeah.
Like that's been a big piece.
I literally journal every day, and I journal my intention. I'll journal prayers. I will tell God I'm so fucking mad and disappointed and depressed that this isn't working or that's not going right. Like I'm not afraid to say like, fuck you, this sucks, and I don't know what the fuck is happening in my life, and where the fuck are you at, and how come I can't find the answers that I'm looking for, and where the fuck am I supposed to go? But I journal all that out instead of tell the lady at the fucking gas station that. Because that's the old me. That's the 5-year-old version of me, is to let everybody know how I feel. Now it's journaling, talking it over with Tonya, letting her know how I feel, where I'm at, what I got going on, and knowing that there are times, real talk, that I do go get cannabis, that I do things that aren't necessarily up to par with some of the fucking society's bullshit. But society isn't going through what I'm going through, and they're not feeling what I'm feeling, and I have to know what I need to do to make myself feel better. And today, what makes me feel better is every morning I get up and I pray. Every morning I freaking read some form of book and get some good thoughts and ideas into my mind. Every morning I freaking write my intentions out in my journal and then let out whatever I need to let out. Every morning I meditate for 10 or 15 minutes, and every morning I exercise. I call it prime my day. And if the days that I prime my day are better than when I don't. And I don't go too many days without priming my day. From there, then it's like I go to the gym, I do a hot tub, I do a sauna, I do a cold shower. And I don't do that because it's the hip thing to do. I do it because those things are what I know I need to do to keep me sane, to keep me focused, to keep me on the right track of mental health, physical health, spiritual health, emotional health. Like, so I have had to make time. I have had to read books. I have had to admit my faults. I have had to face my darkness. And in that, I have learned ways of things and places and people and ideas that I need to do to keep myself as close to on track as I can. But I'm also fully aware, understanding, and accepting of the fact that tomorrow morning I could fucking wake up in a real shitty place and know that I'm gonna do the things that I know I need to do, and they might not work out perfectly, and I may be crushed for an hour or 6 hours or 12, but it's okay to not be okay. And I'm all right, and I'm gonna make it through, and we're not gonna end it all today. And I can focus and keep my mind on that.
Yeah.
And when I can keep my mind on that, I don't have to worry too much about where it's all headed. I know that it's gonna pass by. I know that I can get through it, but it's taken a lot of work to get there. And a lot of it's been the things that I've shared today.
Yeah, that's good. And from my point, like, I have learned to not take things personally when Dustin is feeling some kind of way, because a lot of times, like, when we're struggling with something, we have something going on, we don't usually come out and say it. Like, it comes out in forms of like short, quick bursts of
Fuck yous.
Or actions are just different. And so I've learned to not take it personally of like, man, why is he acting like an asshole today? More be like, yo, are you good?
Check in.
Like, is everything all right?
Yeah.
What's really going on?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that has allowed me, from our experiences over the last few years of what we've encountered, and you being vulnerable and open to sharing and telling me, and both of us are that way. We will share what we're going through, but being able to not take that thing personally when you're acting like an asshole.
Yeah.
And me saying like, yo, something's wrong here. What's really going on? And learning to read between the lines.
Yeah.
And sometimes I still get it wrong, right? Like, I'm not perfect. But for the most part, learning to read between the lines and notice, like, man, his behavior is off today. He's not usually short on his comeback or whatever. And so what is that? What's really going on? And being able to have that conversation and giving him the room to open up and share with me. And I can call bullshit on you and say, no, what's really going on?
Yeah.
What's this really about?
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, I think that's why our relationship is the way it is. But I think that everybody needs somebody like that, whether it's your best friend, whether it's a therapist, whether it's your mom, like whatever that is, like that's what lets you know that you are not alone. Like, she lets me know that I'm not fighting this by myself. Mm-hmm. She lets me know that we're in this together.
Yep,
We'll
figure it out.
By just being there, by allowing me to fucking scream when I need to scream, allowing me to punch something when I need to punch something.
I don't have the answers, but I'm here to support you. I'm here to love you. Whatever you need, letting them know that you're there is a big help.
But I think for me, like, also not using sex, not using work, not using money, not using travel or cannabis or all these things to mask the problems that I'm facing. Alcohol, right? I used to use all of those things to cover up what I was feeling or not have to face what I was feeling. And today it's like facing them, maybe in the use of cannabis, maybe in the use of something else, but understanding that that's not to mask it. It's a crutch to help you through. Mm-hmm. And it's like, that's huge growth and huge commitment, because like I said, it can cause its own problems. Mm-hmm. And so I don't highly recommend it, because it does, then you gotta get back off of it and you gotta figure things out on your own. But sometimes it allows you to get through 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 month seasons where it's like all you feel like is just getting your ass kicked over and over again. And we have vices as people.
Yeah, food.
Food. Like, I'm here to tell, I will get me a large ass pizza and crush the whole thing. Why? Because for 10 minutes it helps me feel normal or better or whatever. And so like knowing what those are, but also knowing that that is a razor's edge that will cut the shit out of you. And you're not far away from turning a wrong turn. So for me, it's being mindful of that and knowing what I can do. I think that's really all I got.
Yeah.
So with that, it is okay to not be okay.
Mm-hmm.
You are not alone. You're not an island. You have problems just like everybody else has problems, and that is okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the end of episode 6, Dustin
Yeah.
and Tonya podcast
2.0.
2.0. I hope you guys enjoyed this. I hope someone got something from this, and I hope you realize that you're not alone. I know our inboxes are always open on Instagram, and it's not something that I can say I can walk you through it, but somebody can walk with you as you go through it. Yeah, I know that's sometimes just what somebody needs.
Yeah, just know you're not alone.
Yeah, with that, we love y'all. We'll catch you next week.
Bye, guys.